Hey, welcome back, guys, to the Ortiz Outtakes. I'm Carlos, and this is Mela. What's going on, folks?
So, what were you up to today?
Oh, well, basically, I don't know what the fuck. Let me see. I didn't do shit today. No, I was going through some of my comic books, and I decided to pull out just some of the comics that I had in my inventory that coincided with the story of the X-Men 97 series. Um, It's just a few. I just had a few, and those on the table down here. We have the Cyclops and Phoenix series. We
Hmm.
have Cable, the first one, the first Gambit solo series. We have the X Men from when it's number 25 from when Magneto ripped out the adamantium from Wolverine.
Oh, nice.
We have the Onslaught, and then we have the rise of the apocalypse. And that's just a few of the comic book storylines that X-Men 97 went with. The task at hand, it was pretty tough because I see what they was trying to do, the writers, and it kind of makes sense. Well, it makes perfect sense from from the way I'm seeing it, and that's the way that they did the story. First of all, for the whole season,
Hmm.
um, they had to kind of bring everybody back up to speed on the X-Men series, and that one was such a long time ago. There was some people that was not even, born, so they had to get everybody back on track.
Yeah.
Um, and the way that they did that, it was very well choreographed in the way that they did it because they tied in a lot of storylines, major storylines. I'm not talking about every storyline, just the major ones like Apocalypse, the Onslaught, and there was a couple else there was a couple more that was intertwined within the story, and they had to do it in a way that would make sense and that would bring everybody up to speed and at the same time telling a new story, and which what I think is what they did. At first I was worried that they was going to just tell the same old story about Magneto, and his upbringing, or and Wolverine, and Phoenix, and these are the ones that they keep on repeating and repeating and repeat them. I understand
Yeah.
those are the one of the greatest. They're so one of the greatest titles, but they've done it already, so many times, and the way that they retold that in a way that wouldn't sound like they retelling the whole story, as they told bits and pieces here and there, except obviously for the last episode with Charles and Magneto's exposition, throughout the whole uh,
Episode.
cartoon, pretty much, So, but that was kind of like what I was doing, and while I was doing that, I was pulling out, like I said, the ones that I had on hand, and I just wanted just to show that that's an example of all the stories that the writers had to comb through and pick out different things that you see in the series so far in season 97,
One. Yeah. And they had to come through a lot
yeah.
because I've been, of course, after every episode, watching all the YouTubers who cover it and like the ones who cover the comic books and the different storylines and stuff. And then I probably collected like two comic books based on it, but I had a lot of fun with this season because me and my fiance Nathan been following the showrunner, and before every episode or after episode 5 he started, he may have done this before, but we started at around episode 5, um following what he was saying, and he would assign homework to
Mhm.
us before each week. And I've been watching the older series, so he would be like, watch episode 5 and 6 of season 4 or something like that. And so we made sure we did that, and we made sure we like were up to date on the episodes that he said to watch. And then also we try to find the comics at the comic book store of the ones that he said was homework for that week. So we kind of had fun doing like the extra stuff too, like being assigned the homework and getting make sure we're super prepared, and it just made it that much better because I don't know, it's just like nerd power. But yeah, we got like a super fan who actually loves X-Men and didn't try to put like his own ego in there. He kept true to the costumes, he kept true to the storylines and the underlying storylines, and he didn't try to like change too much and keep it true for the real fans who have seen all the old series and who have read the comic books. Like everything that was there, you can find it from somewhere.
It was definitely a good series. I enjoyed it. We're gonna about to go into some spoilers right now, so
But what's
spoiler
your
alert.
rating? As your
Oh, oh.
spoiler free rating, what is after watching the season finale for the whole, not just the episode rating, but the show rating?
So for the season, after watching the last episode, I have to give it a 8 plus.
8?
Yeah, eight
Okay.
plus.
I think I'll give it a 9.
And we'll explain our ratings. I said 8 plus. She said 9 at the end of our episode.
So
Yeah.
let's get into it. I guess I'll dive in. The season finale begins with some new additions to the intro. If you pay attention, every episode there's like a slight tweak to all of them that kind of gives a clue to what's going to happen either in that episode or in the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So some of the things that we saw were young Professor X and Magneto are fighting. Emma Frost was added as well, and she appears to be using her abilities.
It all starts out with Magneto and Charles having a drink at a bar during the war. And they have lab coats on and they're sitting at the bar. And the rest of the patrons are allied forces. It happens to be the first time that they find out that one another is a mutant. It turns out that this is just a memory because Professor X was in his mind trying to convince Magneto to change his mind about the destruction of humankind. Magneto begins to recover some of his senses and he begins to get angry all over again. So Charles has to use all of his mental strength to incapacitate Magneto in order to overtake Magneto's mind. And when he does that, an explosion occurred and released the power of Magneto that he had on the Earth's gravitational field.
Whenever he released that power that Magneto had on Earth's gravity field, whenever this happened, it gave Bastion the power to regenerate his army of Sentinels because initially Magneto took away the Earth's gravity field, so all machines, electricity, and the whole Earth stopped working. So that just made Bastion be able to repower his army of Sentinels and human hybrids, and chaos ensues on the streets all over the world. So while this is going on, there were plenty of cameos. Like I practically jumped off of my couch, and I
Yeah,
stayed
it
up till
was.
2 in the morning to watch it because it was like midnight in some parts, of the country.
Yeah.
But for us, it was like 2 a.m.
Hmm.
I was like falling asleep waiting, and then all of a sudden I was wide awake because some of the cameos that we got, we saw Captain America and Iron Man. I was like this, that meme with Leonardo DiCaprio where he's like pointing, like
Yeah.
I'll add.
It's
That
like,
was
oh.
me. That was me. I was like, Iron Man. We see Captain America and Iron Man are working with the government. We see Spider Man and Daredevil on the street level. And meanwhile, Bastion captured what was assigned as the gold team by Cyclops, which consisted of Jean, Cable, Beast, Forge, and Storm. So he captured them at this time.
Yeah. Bastion then breaks into exposition about how if Professor X would have accepted him into his school, all this would have never happened. Bastion, he really gets pissed off, so he skips to the last phase of the OZT. That's the Operation Zero Tolerance. It cuts to King T'Chaka, who's the Black Panther at the time, fighting off all the human hybrid, and in Wakanda, and then it cuts also back to Iron Man and Captain America fighting in their area in the government building. They even show Cloak and Dagger. Do you remember that show, Cloak and Dagger, that they had on TV?
No, I don't. Oh, the live action one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I do.
So that one was quietly canceled because that's how good it was. Anyway, so they show Omega Red and his team, and they also show Alpha Flight and Psylocke all fighting off human hybrids all around the world. Bastion, he turns his attention to Cable and told Mr. Sinister to make him tell him how many times that he attempted to change the past and failed. Cable admitted to 200 times. As Bastion was about to make an example of Cable in front of the other X-Men, out of freaking nowhere comes the Phoenix to save the day again.
I was gonna say, yeah, again, because literally right before all that happened, I was like, freaking. Well, Jean Grey at this moment, she was kind of gone. Like it looked like she like drowned in the water or something like that. And I was
Yeah.
like, before that happened, I was yelling at the TV. I was like, I know, I know the Phoenix better come out. The Phoenix comes to save the day again, and she immediately places the inhibitor around Bastion's neck, which puts a stop to his mutant powers or his abilities. And she releases the X-Men. Then she drains all the mutant genes that Mr. Sinister possessed throughout many, many years of stealing from other mutants. After she did it, Homeboy looked like a California sun-dried raisin. He asked, and then, and then
He
he
did.
asked, he asked Morph to show him what he looked like, and then
Yeah.
so Morph did the same, face. He morphed into him to show him how he looked, and he ran away crying like a 3-year-old baby. So he said,
Yeah.
"Oh," he
I know
literally ran off like that.
it almost sounded like a cartoon, like a little kid's cartoon, you
It
know?
reminded me of like it was like Scooby Doo ish, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. Yeah, no. I
Oh
was
wait, and
thinking the
you're wearing
same
the
thing.
Mystery Machine shirt today.
That's right.
After Phoenix did that, she freaking bounced. Poof.
Damn.
She said, "Deuces, y'all can take care of the rest. I'm out."
Damn. Yeah, she did roll out like that. That was kind of strange.
She
But,
said, "All right," and she said, "Poof," and then Jean Grey just come. But the good
yeah.
thing was that Jean Grey didn't like pass out and go to a coma, because she already
I'm,
been through this. So that's the
yeah.
good thing.
I'm telling you. But, as soon as she popped smoke, and left, Bastion came out of nowhere and blasted the X-Men that was standing on the beach like dumbasses looking at everything happen, you know. They,
I was thinking the same thing.
I'm serious. Then he goes straight to Cable, rips off his metallic arm, and then proceeds to beat the shit out of him with his own freaking arm.
I'm gonna tell you something. I know that part was bad. Like I was like, "Oh shit," like that. But when he initially ripped it off and gave him the first slap, I busted out laughing.
I know, right? It was
I
kind of
said
funny.
he was violating.
Yeah, he did. He made him look like a punk. He then converts the metal arm into armor and puts it on and creates like a suit of armor for himself. And he blasts off to the asteroid with the intention of destroying it and hurling the pieces back down to Earth to destroy the Earth.
So back on the asteroid, Magneto, because mind you, there's the blue team is on the asteroid. The gold team is what just everything we just described. But the blue
Yeah.
team is up there in the asteroid. And so on the asteroid, Magneto and Charles are they're still mentally connected. And in the outside world, they look like they're unconscious, but in their heads, we see, they're having a conversation. Charles is bringing up memories to try to like convince Magneto to come through, pretty much. But they're still mentally connected and unconscious, and then we see Wolverine laying down, trying to heal, and then we see like a sweet moment with Cyclops leans over to where Wolverine is laying and tells him to push through and to not break Jean's heart, because he knows that he knows Wolverine loves Jean, but he also does know that Jean does love Wolverine. She has a place for Wolverine in her heart. So with Bastion headed to the asteroid, everyone forgot Rogue and Roberto in the last episode, threw the X-Men to the side like a prom night dumpster baby in the last episode.
Oh shit.
And all of a sudden, and then they're back. They're just now they're back on the X-Men side. Well, they got to save the world. I guess that's the X-Men's promise, is to do the good. So at least they wasn't bad or turn their back for too long, I guess. Whenever Bastion arrives, Rogue is the first one to meet him by punching him in the face in the name of Gambit, of course. And I just want to say, I love Rogue. Like, she's just one of my favorite X-Men. Roberto joins the fight as Sunspot. And this is like a good moment for Roberto, because he says, like, oh no, I'm Sunspot. Like, he's like claiming his name. And this has been a big deal because this entire series he's been basically trying to shut off his mutant side. So now he's Sunspot and he let us know. And they end up on the far side of the moon where there was an atmosphere in place. I'm guessing it's because the Skrulls originally built it and the Watcher was also an occupant at a time.
President Kelly has a meeting on the Magneto protocols with other government heads. King T'Chaka was on FaceTime, and also Steve Rogers was there in the room as well. Um, they're all trying to convince the president to not initiate the Magneto Protocol because it'll destroy the Earth when the nukes explode and the asteroid comes down. It's going to fall straight to the Earth and destroy it. So while considering the arguments, he's thumbing through Magneto's file, and we could see some Easter eggs like his alias, Eric, David Hamlin, Ian, and Michael, which are names of the actors that played Magneto in the live action films. Also, his children was Quicksilver. It says Scarlet Witch, and there was a name that was redacted, and I'm really thinking that is Polaris. Also, why did they even write their superhero or names? They put Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch and not Pietro and Wanda Maximoff.
Charles and Magneto have some exposition in which they show a boat at sea. And on this boat, it's like, in a stormy sea. And we see Rogue, we see Pietro, Quicksilver, and Wanda, the Scarlet Witch. And we see this mystery person. It's kind of a shadowy mystery person, but like we said, we think it's Polaris.
So as Magneto begins to regain his memory, Bastion defeats Rogue and Sunspot. And then he heads towards the asteroid where he's met by the wall crawler, Cyclops, and Jubilee. This is when Bastion has a funny line towards Jubilee. He says, "What? Are you going to slay me with the 4th of July?" Yeah. So
I
there's
busted out
Cyclops.
laughing when he did that too, because I'm always like, there go Jubilee with her fireworks.
And I was talking shit about I think the last time we talked about the X-Men, and I said that I really didn't like her too much,
Yeah.
coming up and stuff. So I kind of laughed at that too. I was like, yeah, actually. So Cyclops, he does that signature Capcom power beam with Bastion, and then Jubilee uses her power that she learned from her older self and lit him up. He was kind of messed up pretty good too. They ripped
Mm-hmm.
off some of his face. The rest of the X-Men arrive in an improvised Sentinel that Beast and Forge hotwire, and use the Sentinel to put the foot of the Sentinel on top of Bastion. Um, Cyclops tried to convince him to come to the good side. Like it's like kind of like Star Wars or whatever. But that's
Yeah.
when the nukes hit the asteroid and it blew up the asteroid's core. When that happened, like a black hole or a dimensional rift or something like that appeared, and it sucked up everything that was around it inside of it. Cyclops tried to put out his hand and save Bastion, but Bastion said, "Go to hell." I think he even went like this, and then he jumped through the hoop, through the
He
hole, and
said,
disappeared.
"Yep." Missiles hit the asteroid, and so it's basically coming down to Earth. And at this time, Cyclops and Jean telepathically communicated with Cable, who is down on Earth. And they made peace and they expressed their love before saying goodbye, thinking that this was it. Beast figures out a way that they can try to survive using both the X Men's abilities and Cyclops' power with the Jet's engine.
And while this is happening, they show the street level chaos, and we get a cameo of Peter Parker, Mary Jane, and Flash Thompson. So I don't know if you remember during the Amazing Spider-Man uh, show that ran simultaneously with the X-Men. Um, at the last episode, Mary Jane had uh, disappeared, and he was looking for her, but then he got with Madam Web, and Madam Web, uh, they went into another dimension trying to look for Mary Jane. So that right there shows that he actually found her.
Back on the asteroid, Morph shows his support and love to Wolverine, and he does this by going to Wolverine's bedside, and he's like, "Well, if I can't do it, she can." And then he morphs into Jean, and he's like, basically like saying like, "Come on, you got to pull through. I love you," which I thought was really sweet. That Wolverine and Morph, like when you watch the old series, like you see moments where like Wolverine is just like, "Oh man, I love Morph. He's the only one who makes me laugh." Meanwhile, Charles and Magneto are still fucking around in their heads, and so before
Damn, that's
Mag-
like the whole episode, man.
the whole episode they're unconscious in the outside, but in the inside they're going through shit. They're going through
Yeah,
deep
yeah.
therapy, I guess. Magneto finally snaps out of it and saves the Earth by using his power to pull the asteroid away from the Earth. And at this time, everyone on Earth, including the X-Men that were on the ground watching, were cheering. And both Jubilee and Forge were amongst them. But while looking up at the asteroid, it exploded, leaving everybody in shock because it not only like exploded, it disappeared. There was like
Yeah.
no debris, there was no like fire, you know? So I feel like, just like some predictions, I feel like somebody took it somewhere. Somebody that we don't know.
It then cuts 6 months later, where they show Forge is in his lab listening to the news on the radio and looking at a board with all the mutants that are assumed dead, missing, or off planet, with a few that remain active. So Bishop appears out of nowhere. Well, we assume it's from the future.
Yeah.
And, but Ford is about to blast him. He pulled out his nine and shit. He
Mm-hmm.
was like, yo, I don't know you. So Bishop introduces himself and he says, that you do know me because I'm from the future. And he tells Forge that the X-Men that are presumed dead are actually alive, but they're in a different time. They agree they agree to go and rescue them. But that scene right there, there was a few things they had on the radio broadcast. They were showing that the guy was talking on the radio was saying that President Kelly was having issues
Mm-hmm.
uh, as far as like re-election and things like that. So it's setting up, you know, setting up on that stage politically, you know. And then
Yeah.
when they show the board, they just, they just show people that, like I said, they assumed dead, missing, but the ones that are active, um, they did mention during their exposition. I'm talking about Forge and Bishop. That I believe it's Forge says, "So what you doing? Travel around, uh, creating a new team." I think that's what he said. And looking at the board, there are available people that can actually begin to be a team. They had Iceman was still available, and it was like two or three more. So I just thought that was interesting.
Bishop explains what's going on kind of to Ford, and he says it's not where they are, it's when they are.
Yeah.
And, explaining basically Bishop is the one that has been, if you watch all the old series and stuff, he goes back and forth between the past and the future all the time. Rogue, Nightcrawler, Beast, Professor X, and Magneto end up in ancient Egypt in the year 3000 BC, where they encounter young Apocalypse. And, if you're an X-Men fan, Apocalypse is just another their many one of their main villains. And Cyclops and Jean wind up in the future, in the year 3960 AD, where they encounter Ascani, Rachel Summers, and a young Nathan Cable, their son.
Those parts right there, uh, where they ended up, is pretty important. Um, but I must circle back to that when we finish. So in the post credit scene, it's present day, and Apocalypse is in Genosha. If you remember, Genosha is shambles. This rubble, and this dead bodies, and it's messed up because of what Bastion did.
Mm-hmm.
So Apocalypse sifts through some rubble and picks up. Guess what? It's a Queen of Hearts.
It's the last
So,
like card that Gambit threw.
and when he picks up the Queen of Hearts, he says something in reference to so much death.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the end of the show.
Yeah. So, just since we're fresh on it, what do you think of him looking at Gambit's card?
So what my theory is that because there is a second season, um,
There
and they
is
finished
for
off,
sure.
yeah, they finished off the series, this season with Apocalypse. So I'm thinking that if you remember an Apocalypse story, or if in the comic books or the movie, he does summon the four horsemen, and I'm thinking that Archangel is still going to be one of them because remember Forge's bird, his board, Archangel, I believe his said that it was he was unaccounted for or something like that.
It's either that or I'll double check, or it has nothing on
Yeah, it's either one of those two, which still, either way, it makes him available to be
Yeah.
one of the horsemen. The other horsemen, I would assume, and just kind of like putting it out there, I'm thinking it's gonna be Gambit, and that's the way that they bring. And I don't know who's the other two horsemen are gonna be, but those two, I think for sure. Um, so I think that that's how uh he's gonna
The
come back, and what the impact of him pulling that card was.
or it could just be wishful thinking, and we just want Gambit back because I want
Yeah.
Gambit back. I it just like kind of off topic, but I just like recently watched a Christmas episode of the old X Men series, And Gambit just cracks me up so much. He was in the him and Jean were trying to cook Christmas dinner in the kitchen, and he tasted her food and he said, "Ugh," because you know he's Cajun, and he said, "Ain't no spices in here, lady." He was trying to add some paprika and some like cayenne pepper and everything, and she was like, there was fighting in the kitchen. She was like, "Don't you dare touch my cooking," or whatever. Like, just my thoughts on the season. Um, I loved it. I had so much fun watching this. It's been like such a treat. And so I keep it at my rating at a 9. And the only thing that would have made it a 10 for me is I just feel like with all the cameos that we saw, and they were helping in their own ways down on the ground on Earth, like Iron Man, Captain America, and we saw Spider Man and Daredevil. They were fighting the Sentinels and stuff, so they were helping on the ground. But I feel like the Avengers, like Iron Man and maybe Thor and maybe like Captain Marvel or something, that they would have been up in the atmosphere helping with that asteroid because they fought in space all the time. Maybe that's just me being again wishful thinking, but that would have been pretty cool to see them actually fighting side by side with
Yeah.
the X-Men team. So that's why I keep mine at a 9, but that's pretty much a 10.
I'm still there at an 8 plus, and the reason is that although the writers they deserve 110% of the credit, for doing a great job. Um, the flaw that I saw is that it was, like I said, it was too much. And what I
Yeah.
mean by too much is they 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 start a storyline and they finish a storyline. You know what I'm saying? Like Professor X, he was like gone for 2 episodes. And then he was back. Everybody thought he was dead for 2 episodes, and then he came back. I thought they brought it. I think they brought him back a little bit too fast. Um, I think that was one of the things that I saw. Um, and also, just like I said, the storylines that they were intermixing
Mhm.
with the story, they would just start and go. Then the when Storm lost her powers, she got with Forge, and that is another storyline on its own. They even have a limited comic, like 1 through 4 or something like that of Storm and Forge, and then the next one was Gambit and Rogue.
Yeah.
That's another. So it's like I understand what they were trying to do, and for the most part, they did bring all of those to like a Loki vine, right? They did bring
Mhm.
all of this just so it won't be messy. You know what I'm saying? And I get it. Um, but I just thought that the storylines would start and then end, start and then end.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of another one, but those are just kind of ones that I saw real quick.
Oh
They
yeah.
incorporating the Phoenix Apocalypse, Rogue and Gambit. I mean, yeah, Rogue and Gambit. The other thing was Jean Grey and Madeline Pryor. That right there is a
Mhm.
whole. I guess they did have to do that part right there because that's how the end of the last season started, ended rather.
Mhm.
So they had to pick it up so in order for it to make sense. But
Yeah.
as soon as they could fix it, they never gonna fix it because that's why I'm saying like if we circle back to this last episode and the team that ended up Jean Grey and Cyclops, they ended up in the year 3000, right?
Yeah.
No, 3900 something,
Mhm. In the
AD.
future.
Yeah, and they met Ascani. So that's another storyline right there. They opened a can of worms on because and they're gonna have to tell the story now, and because
Mm-hmm.
Ascani is Rachel Summers, and uh uh that is Scott's daughter, you know.
Yeah,
So
it's
the
crazy.
thing is like it's then they're gonna have to explain that part and why she's Rachel Summers,
Yeah.
and you know uh that's where
Well,
Cable ended up at, and that's where Bishop dropped him off at, you know. And then you look at now we go back to the year 3000 BC, where the other team is at: Professor X, Magneto, Rogue, Beast,
Beast.
and was it Morph? Where the fuck did Morph go? I don't remember Morph
I
there.
think Morph was there with Rogue.
Okay, so it might. So that team right there, and they meet none other than the young Apocalypse. About that part right there, that's also kind of like another theory in which Apocalypse is in Egypt. The one that's in charge right now in Egypt in that timeline is Ramatut. And Ramatut is who? Kang the Conqueror. So
Ah.
that's another storyline right there. And one of the ways that I could see that they could get rid of Kang in the MCU. I'm just saying. Anyway, the Fantastic Four show up and they kind of like take Robin Tut out of power. They could take season 2 and they could go a number of ways, and they can now tie in to the MCU a little bit cleaner.
So I'm excited to see what we're gonna get for season two, because the showrunner that we have right now, um, he's proven to be really good, and everybody loves the choices that he made, and like, from everything from the storylines to the outfits that they're wearing. Like he
Yeah,
made all those decisions, and but that for for a reason unknown that they fired him.
yeah,
But he already did season two, so we're getting season two with this showrunner. But I'm just wondering if they're gonna get him back, because I mean, firing him is gonna. I think it's gonna show to be a mistake, because if we're not satisfied with somebody new for season three, I just don't think that they should take that risk. This is like probably the best animated show that has been out so far this year. All right, so everyone, I hope you enjoyed our episode about X-Men 97, and we can't wait till it comes back so we can bring you more X-Men content. Um, Leave your rating in the comments and like tell us your favorite part about the whole season. We would love to hear it. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our page. And thank you to all our new subscribers. Like, we see you and we appreciate you. So just continue to keep liking and sharing and boosting our video into like your friends and family's timelines.
all right,
All right.
everybody, peace. Peace.
That's how you felt about X-Men 97.